Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pixelated Perfect podcast. I am excited for you guys to meet Olamide. He is a designer from Nigeria, and he's doing so many things, so I'm really excited to dive in. To give a quick intro, he is a UI UX designer at CoinMara, which is an African leading crypto company. He's also a senior product designer at Toptal, which is basically connecting elite designers with Fortune 500 companies. And he's a co-founder of Virtual Core Creative, where he's basically been leading product and design and is a design manager as well. So I'm really excited to talk to him and learn more about how he got from the beginning to doing so many things in design. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jen, for inviting me on the program. And it's an honor to join you here right now. Thank you very much.
Of course. Okay, so let's get into it. So tell me, when did design come into your life?
Wow. Okay, my story is a bit long. Well, design started when I was in the university. So I studied computer engineering about a few years ago. So while I was in the university, I got to start with programming development, actually. But I had a lot of friends who were actually into development, and I was trying to look for a niche for myself. So later on, when we started development, I actually have a flair for working on how the aesthetic of the product will look like, the software we're going to build. So from there, most of my friends says, okay, don't help us work on the back end or the front end design, just work on the design of how this product is going to look like. So ever since then, I started getting even gigs on saying, okay, please help us work on this particular product or perhaps this design, because I also ventured into branding, motion graphics, before I actually fully focused on product design. Basically, ever since university and when I graduated from university, I decided to just stay full focus on product design. Until now, I keep exploring for that and for that too. As everything unfolds.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I have some questions for you. So I think that's really interesting that your degree was in computer engineering, that's what you were studying, but all of your friends and they just like saw this design in you and everything you were working on, you just kind of like went to design. So how did you kind of pick up that skill set? Was it literally you just like playing around and you're just like a creative person and it just happened? It just kind of fell into your
Okay, so for me, it's a skill that just fell into my lap because I wasn't planning to be a designer majorly. So I just like my every other friend wants to become a developer. I wants to code and do all those. But since a lot of people were saying, wow, we love your design, we love everything, can you help us do more of this? So I started getting more works in that line and I started saying a future in it. So I started saying, okay, what can I do to actually progress in this particular field? Since it's quite interesting for me to actually work on designs also. So I just kept learning further into it. Even when I started design, I mentioned Adobe earlier. I love doing using Adobe packages majorly, Photoshop, After Effects, and others. So I just kept exploring different softwares, and that was the way it just kept evolving with time. But I just love design totally. I fell in love with it completely, and since then I just keep pushing forward.
I love that. I love that. So you also kind of mentioned you started playing around a little in branding and motion design, but you just were like, UI UX design is my calling. So what was that process for you to make that decision?
You know, in Nigeria, although we don't have, when I started product design, as at that time, we don't have much product designers here. Everyone is a graphic designer. That is the most common job here. So later on, about 4 years or 5 years back, I noticed, because then I started product design using Photoshop. Don't laugh at that. So
me too, me too. I'm so glad we've come far from there, but I totally get it.
So I started with Photoshop, just trying to just design the interface using Photoshop to just create ideas and stuff. But later on, it was quite restricting. So I started searching for that, and that was when I got to know about Sketch and others. But using Sketch was quite limited for us here because we're developed countries and not everyone has MacBook. So I couldn't use the software. So but when Figma came about, that actually gave me more interest into it, and I just keep pushing further, and that actually blew my mind when I saw the amount of things I can achieve using Figma and other related software. So when I saw it came to evolve in, so I just keep pushing further in that particular line, and it has been amazing so far.
That's awesome. Okay, one more question before you move on, because I'm just curious. So you've said about like in Nigeria, like no one had, like it was harder to use Sketch because of the program, and Figma has really allowed you to dive deep into design because you can, I guess, because you can just share Figma in a different way. Is that right?
Yes.
So like
Perfect.
are all product designers using Figma now?
Oh yeah. So in Nigeria, compared to other developed countries, Sketch is quite expensive to afford down here. So so most of the time, although there's quite a number of people who actually use Sketch, the Figma came out as a let me say an open source whereby you can use it almost totally free. So which actually gave more interest to designers, because having a free software to use and even the collaborative features in it whereby you don't have to install any software, just open your browser and you jump into the product. So that actually made us actually employ into it and actually venture into it much better. So that is majorly hit anyway.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, I've talked about this on the podcast before. I love Figma. I was like an early adopter of Figma, and like, oh my gosh, it's everything to me. So it's so great every time I have conversations about Figma. It's so great to hear how Figma's affected like the world. It's really, really interesting, and I love it so much. So shout out to Figma. Okay, so let's keep moving. So what did you do after this? After you were like, product design is my niche, that's where I want to go.
Okay, for me, when I started seeing product design as a particular in my career line, so it wasn't that easy for me to start out, because when I started design, branding, and motion graphics, it's quite easy because you see a lot of resources online on YouTube. Go anywhere on Google, you see a lot of resources. The product design is not something, when I started, I couldn't see a lot of resources because Figma was just coming out. The only thing you get to see is how to use Figma. But I don't really know the fundamentals like we have right now, whereby we have the Google UX Foundational course almost totally free. You have a lot of courses on Udemy and others. When I started, I don't have enough resources like that, which made it quite difficult for me to actually go up the ladder when going into product design. But due to the difficulties I actually faced, I decided that when I'm actually be good enough, I decided to be sharing my knowledge with people that are close to me. That is when I actually found out about ADP List, which I've been able to mentor quite a number of people in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. And it's very fulfilling to be able to contribute to the design community as a whole using the platform. And I also use other platforms to actually contribute, Telegram and every other one, to just reach out to people and just help them, guide them through the process in order to achieve that particular goal in life.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we've definitely talked about ADP List on the podcast before, but it is truly amazing. And that's really great that like you probably had a lot of trial and error in those early stages while you were figuring it out. And so you can take all of that knowledge and share it with others in your community and the world. So like, that's really, really interesting. Question, what do you think is the number one problem designers face in Nigeria? When you are mentoring these new designers in ADP List, what's the number one challenge that they talk about?
For developing countries, Nigeria, for example, and I met quite a number from people from India also, because we almost have the same relation of the same issues we face. For starting out as a designer, talking about product design right now, getting resources is now much easier, which is actually very good. So you getting access to resources, now we have too many resources for you that you don't exactly know what to pick. You get it? That is the first issue I noticed most people who are trying to launch into product design really face. So what I just do is just point them across, okay, you can go through this course and this one, this should be enough for you to start out. Then you can do this and do next in order for you to move further. So the major one that actually accompanies that is after you've learned everything, so what next is for you to get a job. So in Nigeria, we have a lot of designers, they're very small companies who really appreciate product design, because some companies right now still don't know what product design is or what UX research and every other thing is. So if you were to even, some companies will employ you as a designer, because I actually got to speak with a few entry-level designers, whereby after they got into the company, they're employed as a UI UX designer, but they end up doing graphic design jobs for social media because the companies don't even know the value of what they're actually employing these people for. So till now, we still the clarity in that particular field is not so vast, even though we have quite a number of companies who know about this, but yet getting jobs in this line is still very minimal. And a lot of the way they pay Africans generally or down here, it's very to most compared to other countries is very small. So most people want to get foreign jobs so that they can get better pay. So which is very limited because they don't really get that offer. And so majorly that is the main thing we face. Number one is streamlining the lines of resources for you to learn. And number two is getting job after you are done with all your learnings. So those are the two major difficulties most entry-level designers face in Nigeria.
Yeah. I mean, that's the challenge everywhere too. I feel like when I talk to junior designers, they're overwhelmed with resources too. So it's like, how do you find or tell them the best resources? So do you have resources that you recommend? Like, do you have like a package or like courses that you're like, hey, this is a great course, I recommend this? Or do you kind of just like, depending on the person?
Most times, before the era or before the coming out of Google UX Foundational course, it was quite challenging to get resources for designers. So, but because I had to Google quite a number and just have a list of chunks of videos to watch on Udemy, on Coursera, and every other thing. So, which is quite stressful for me because after I've gone through two different courses, the tutors will say two different things. So most of it doesn't really are not actually in synergy. So which is a lot of difficult, which cause for a lot of difficulty where I had to explain over and over to most of them. But since I found Google UX Foundational course, it's actually encompasses everything from scratch that they need to know. So most designers I find right now, immediately you just come to me and say, okay, what resource do you need to start with? Just pick this, because everything you need to start out is well articulated there. So the first thing I give to them, take that. When you're done, then I'll be able to put you through what next you need to do. So for now, that is still the best shot for me. That is the best resource for now.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. I think for all those designers out there looking to get started, yeah, definitely check out the UX Google Foundations. I mean, what could go wrong? It's Google, right? So it sounds like they probably have a little bit of everything in there. No, that's great. So what was your process of getting your first job like? Kind of talking about the challenge that a lot of junior designers face.
For me, yes, just like every other designer, it's not as, okay, well, let me say it's a bit easier for me to get job then than now. Because at that time, we don't have much product designers, unlike now where there is thousands of product designers without jobs. So when I started out, I started as a graphic designer, which is quite easy. But when I pivoted into product design fully, there were a lot of jobs, but little professionals to handle the job. So it was a little bit quite easy for me, but looking for the job wasn't in quotes that easy also. So how I was able to actually find my first job in it was using of LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the major source. Let me say about 70% or let's say 60% of every job I've ever done was gotten through LinkedIn anyway. So and that is actually through reaching out to people. Perhaps I see a company that I'd love to work with. I just reach out to someone in the company and just chat with them and stuff like that. And people are quite willing to give it a shot at that time because you don't have too many professionals. So it was quite easy at that time. So we usually just reach out to one or two, you're going to get a shot with one of them. So it was easy for me then, but compared to now, it's not that easy, but I guess it's still a very good platform for you to actually reach out and get a chance to actually get to work with companies.
Yeah, I think that's amazing advice for juniors and just like find a company that you are passionate about and reach out to them versus just applying to jobs, because everyone's applying to jobs. But if you really reach out to them and send a message to them and tell them like personally what you like about them instead of just going through the traditional applying route, that makes such a big difference. And so that's a great recommendation.
Yeah, so I had to even do something whereby for every designers I got to meet on ADP list, I made sure after you've been able to go through the basic courses and things, and just during the mentorship session, I made sure that at least a week or so is dedicated to even teaching them how to even use LinkedIn very well, because quite a number of people just see it as a boring social platform compared to what you see on TikTok and what you see on Instagram. So talking to generally Gen Z, most times they don't really fancy using LinkedIn. Because of the value they want to get, I had to just encourage them. Oh, this is how you set up your profile. This is how you reach out to people and stuff like that. But it has really turned out very great for most of them, that after introducing it to them, they end up loving it even more than I actually envisage. Because LinkedIn has been a very great platform to actually help a lot of people right now, because apart from you even getting the jobs, you get to learn a lot from other designers out there from different countries. They post resources and others. So it's not just about looking for jobs and connecting just for the job's sake, but it's actually a very good platform for you to even learn from others too.
Yes. Oh my gosh, well said. I totally agree. It's not as fun maybe as some of them for sure, but it's a great way to make connections. And that is truly, I will say also, like, my career and my jobs and my connections and everything that I do now is on LinkedIn. And that is how I formed so many of these connections. So it really is valuable. So I completely agree. So great advice. So what was that first job you got where you said you were a graphic designer and then you kind of transitioned. So how were you able to jump into a product design job with kind of you learning on your own and starting at graphic design? How did you know how to work as a product designer?
Okay, so when I started, it was all try and error, because I wasn't so sure what is expected of me. I had to do a lot of Google responsibilities of a product designer. So you just keep Googling everything to just see what you're going to do. And luckily for me, or let me say, I don't want to say unluckily for me, I got to go, my first set of jobs were gotten in Nigeria, whereby most of these people don't even know much about what a product designer really does. But because they see most companies employ people in this particular department as a designer, they just want to get someone like that. So I have to be the one to educate the company, whereby I don't have anyone to look up to. I have to be the one to learn everything and say, educate the stakeholders. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to give to the companies and stuff like that. So mine was a bit rocky to start with. So I have to be the one to teach myself. I am the senior designer and the junior designer in the whole company because I'm the only designer, the only product designer. So it was very difficult for me to start out because I have to teach myself everything, and also the stakeholders to understand what exactly I'm going to be delivering to the company. So mine was a bit rocky. So but right now, I guess it's much easier because you have most companies, and at least you'll get like 2 or 3 product designer. You have a senior designer to guide you all through the process and how you work and everything. So that's it. I hope I didn't miss track of the question you asked.
That's crazy that like you kind of went in and like had to educate yourself. I think that says a lot about you as a person, like taking on this role of educating yourself and then feeling confident enough to like lead and express why. Was your company pretty understanding? Were they like, yeah, like we trust you, or were they like, oh, we don't know?
Okay, yeah. So the first set of jobs I got, let me mention that, were basically, let me call it gigs, whereby it's for contract jobs. So because most of these companies don't really, in quotes, fancy product designers being onboarded as a full staff. So they will just get it to work on a particular feature of their products and send you off. You get it. So by exploring and working with different companies helped me to learn further in time. So that is what actually built me up with time. But the main company that I guess I was fully employed as a product designer was, one of it was Siege. Even though it's a US-based company, but most of the staffs there were Nigerians. So I was able to actually, I was given the privilege to even learn and explore a lot of things I've actually learned in the previous time, to actually explore using it in the team. And that actually really helped me a lot. And for every other company I worked simultaneously with them then, I was even assigned some teams to some designers to work with in some other contract jobs I got. So that really helped me to actually expand further, learning and also teaching others at the same time. So it was quite interesting anyway.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Fascinating. Yeah. So you kind of had a little bit of everything. Like you got the contract, you got the full time, and kind of just like all the challenges and all the experiments.
Yes, because for me, I couldn't get, let me say in quotes, a full-time job. as a product designer because I don't have enough experience, and which is something most entry-level designers really face right now. So no one is ready to give you, in quotes, a full-time job. So most of them will just want to give you a contract job of a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. So through that, some companies want to give you more shots to stay longer. So that was how I was able to touch most of my contract jobs. And the other jobs I got, initially the one I got with Stitch was a contract job for a very short period of time, but ends up being a full-time job because they just say, okay, I love your work, just join our team fully. And that is how I keep exploring for that. So I was lucky. Most of my jobs that turned to full-time were started as a contract job. So after getting to work with them for a short time, they love what I do, and you just say, okay, please stay with us full-time and help us manage the team in this particular direction.
Yeah. And I think kind of the lesson here for designers listening is like, I think contract is a great way to go. I contracted a lot in my career too. And I think you shouldn't be scared of contract. I think it's a way to like test the waters for both parties too, right? So like the company is testing you, but you're also testing them. Like, do you want to be there for longer? Like, how is that relationship working? Like, I think it's a great way to kind of see.
Yes, so that's really true. It's just like you said, it's testing the waters for the two parties because not all companies, because I mentoring a lot of designers, meeting a lot of designers on ADP list got me to understand how a lot of companies work. Some companies that I mentioned don't really know the value of a product designer at that maybe perhaps at their early stage as a startup. So you might get up entering a company and the task and work you're being given is totally off what you actually applied for. For example, you apply to be a product designer, but you end up being a graphic designer in the company. So, so if that does not align with your targets, then you have to work out of the job. You get my point? So, so quite a number of early stage designers end up falling into that kind of job settings. And I'll just advise them, if you know you want to stay on this, perhaps you enjoy doing graphic design, then good. But if you know you really want to go on this career path, then you have to drop this. And luckily, most of them immediately they drop it, they quickly get another job and they keep moving on so far.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, don't feel stuck. Like if it's not a good fit, if it's like they're asking you to do work that's not what your expectations are, it's not what you want to do, that's not a great fit for you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, awesome. So let's keep moving on your career journey. So you've had your first couple of gigs, you've joined the company full time. What's next? Where did you go from there?
Okay, so exploring for that. So most of the jobs I said I spent years doing contract jobs because I find it fun working. I'm not so much an in-house staff because I've been doing remote job for years, even before the pandemic, even though quite a number of people opened eyes to remote jobs after or during the pandemic. So I've been doing remote job for over 4 or 5 years now. So most of the jobs, I get a lot of job offers for me to work in-house, but most times I always turn them down that I'm only open to work remotely. That was why I wasn't able to do most full-time jobs. So I really focus or stick to contract jobs whereby I was allowed to work remotely. So after pandemic, that is when I started getting full-time roles remotely. So which really allowed me to actually pitch to work with some companies. So Stitch was the first one that actually gave me a shot to work full-time. So the other company that I'm presently working with, which is Mara, though I guess you're still calling Mara there, but the new name is actually Mara now. So they actually gave me a shot to say, okay, yes, no problem, you can work with us full-time. Most of our staff are actually remote. And so ever since then, I've just been exploring with them and it has been fun working full-time now. And it's quite enjoyable too, just like we worked previously. So doing that, I was quite lucky that I got a part-time job almost at the same time with Toptal because I was applying to work with Toptal for a while. Then I got a shot with them whereby I was fully accepted to work with the team there. And it has been quite intriguing and eye-opening also to work over there and work with quite a lot of big companies, which I've never even said working with also. So it has been interesting so far.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. I have more questions on this. So first question is, so you've worked remotely, contract, and then you've worked full-time. So what are the benefits and maybe the negatives of each of those? Like which one do you like better?
I think I will stick to full-time jobs. I think so, yeah, because at least the fun thing with full-time jobs is that you have a gradual process of growth and you will see how you're evolving with time. Do you understand? So contract jobs are fun also, but it's quite what should I call it? Because sometimes contract jobs, most of contract jobs I got, most of these companies don't have a big direction on what they want to do, because most of the time they are startups. They just want someone to have the handle a particular section of a project, and it keeps getting iterative, whereby you just keep working on the project, and until when they get frustrated, you just say, okay, enough, we're not doing it anymore, and they just stop the project there. So most of the time, I can't even show this project in my portfolio or showcase I've actually worked on the projects, because most of them die halfway. So
Yep.
You can spend 10 years, or let me say, don't let me use that kind of years. You can spend 3 years working with contract jobs and you have nothing to showcase to all your work. Do you get my point? So that really
Yes.
created a lot of gap in my work experience, because sometimes when I even started applying for jobs for a mid-role or senior role, they said, where are your works? I couldn't show anything, because most of them die halfway. Do you understand? But if you work with full-time companies, full-time roles, or perhaps part-time, those ones actually, most companies you work with actually give you those roles are more structured, and they will also always progress with the project, and you can showcase to say, okay, now I built this product, I worked on this product and this. So for me, full-time is my best shot right now. So better than contracts.
Yeah, no, I mean, those are very valid points. I think when you're contractors, yeah, you're usually working with small teams that are maybe a little more unorganized. It's just a different kind of role you're taking on. And I definitely have experience where kind of like pauses and nothing really comes out of it, or you do a lot of work and maybe the startup fails. There's a lot of what ifs there for sure,
Yes,
for
yes.
sure. And then I would also love to know, like, you working as a product designer for Toptal and working as a full-time designer for Mara, what are those differences? What do you like more or less about them?
Okay, so working with Mara actually gave me, even though it's a startup also in some way, and when you work with startups, you don't really have, although at a start, you have a lot of work for you to do, because you're working on everything from scratch, working on design system, working on the research and building a lot of things. So it's always very tasking, that is right. And also eye-opening, because you get to explore a lot of things. And working with them, actually opened my eyes to a lot of things that I thought I actually knew to before, because with every company you work with, you learn better. So that's how it works. But comparing them to Toptal actually is still, let me say, it's just an advanced contract job, because I'm not working in-house with Toptal. I have to apply for jobs on the platform, and they assign you to companies to work with them. So it's a more organized contract job, and so most of them actually bring out big results eventually. So it's quite more interesting than the previous contract jobs I have actually faced. And since I'm actually doing part-time, it's when I'm free at work that I just look for small projects to work with, and and it has been interesting so far too, also all the way.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, and I think Toptal, like, that says a lot about you as a designer, right? They have like a vetting process, so you have to be accepted and you have to be in their like network of top tier designers. So that's awesome, and I'm sure there's some really cool projects that you get to work on being a part of it.
Sure. Yeah, yes, I was able to work on quite a number of projects. Although I recently joined them this year, by the way. So due to the fact I'm working full time with another company, so I couldn't really take up more projects. But over the time, despite that, I've still been able to work with 3 different companies on Toptal, and it has been interesting. At least 2 of them right now, they're working towards pushing out their products very early next year, and the 3rd one, we're trying to complete the whole project. So it's quite interesting and eye-opening also to work with different companies from different countries. So it's also very good.
Okay, so yeah, question about that. What are kind of the challenges of working with companies that are from different countries?
Oh yeah, number one is time zone. Number one is time zone, because
Yes.
I have been able to adjust my time based on what their requirement is. But basically, apart from that, working with a new team entirely, because most times when companies come to Toptal, perhaps they're starting a new product, or perhaps they have a blockage whereby they don't know which direction to actually go, and they need a senior designer to just jump in and perform a miracle. So I would rather say Toptal designers are miracle performers, because they call them at the last minute to just perform their magic on the projects and make it work out. So apart from the ones that are starting fresh projects, if you're working with companies whereby they already have the products done, but they're just trying to give it a new look or refresh it somehow. So perhaps you have to go through UX auditing and doing a lot of other work. So which is not as interesting as building it from scratch if you're the one working on the project, because you are trying to adjust what someone else has done and perfect it out. So, but either way, it's interesting working on projects. And most of these companies are always, one thing I love about companies on Toptal is that they exactly know what they want to do, which is very good, because we're working with companies who know exactly what they're doing and they have their vision and mission quite clear. So when they bring you on board, they will just directly point you to, okay, this is where we want you to assist us. Then you jump onto that and you're able to move further on it. So it's interesting so far and quite engaging also.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting for other people out there looking to work with Toptal or just in general, companies in different countries. It's always somewhat challenging, but also like exciting to learn about new cultures. So yes, that was great. Thank you for that. So I want to ask you more about this company that you co-founded, the Virtual Core Creatives. Can we talk about that?
Yes, no problem. Okay, so let me just give you a walkthrough of what we did. Okay, so we kind of pause things at the moment because we are two co-founders and both of them are moving outside Nigeria right now. At least one of them is already in UK and the other one might be moving sometime soon. So we started as a digital marketing agency whereby we help startups work on their branding and social media designs. That's how we actually started. Then later on, we started getting requests for us to help them work on their websites or mobile apps and stuff like that. So that's how we kept working on. So we do virtually all those stuff all together. And thank God we're able to work with most of the companies we got to work with are basically, most of them are actually based in Nigeria. Yeah, most of them are actually based in Nigeria. So it's quite interesting working with brands in Nigeria. But ever since I truly completely pivoted into product design, so that's why I had to put some of the work there on hold. Okay, so we had to put some of the work on hold, but it was interesting starting up a team and working with different companies. Yes, it's something I just want to experiment and say, okay, how can this work out? It was quite challenging, not true, because getting to meet the clients and going through meetings and setting up a lot of things is quite challenging because that was my first startup in code. But at the moment, we had to pause things because everyone, two of my colleagues wants to move down to UK. And so when they're fully settled, then perhaps we can move things up higher and see how we can move further on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I as a co-founder myself, I can totally relate to how challenging it is to start a company yourself. All the moving parts, getting customers, finding people to work with you, it's like a whole thing. So congrats on starting your own thing. And I think, do you plan to continue to focus on companies in Nigeria, or are you kind of going to broaden your horizons once you kind of start back up?
Yeah, so when we start back up, right now we are doing more of even learnings. I don't know if you know AJ and Smart. We
Yes.
even had to even take, yeah, okay. So I decided to even reach out to them just to get some things and learn from others. So my other colleagues too are doing their best to actually learn for that. So perhaps next year, after we're able to learn what we can learn again, we can come back and actually build a better company forward. But we're personally, that doesn't mean we stop it. So we're starting out hopefully next year and pushing even a better brand. So yes, for sure, we're going to be reaching out to more brands outside Nigeria. So we're not going to be restricted just only in Nigeria anymore.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to following along with that. So you have done a little bit of everything in the product design space. So thank you so much for walking us through your career path, kind of where you've been, what you've been doing. And my last question to you is, where do you see yourself in the future? Where do you want to go?
Okay, for me, working with different companies is good. Working with startups is very nice. But building your business, your own business, I think is still the most intriguing thing I've ever done, and which is something I will still really focus on later on. So I've been able to work with quite a number of teams. I've been able to mentor quite a number of people. And I believe I'm telling them to go and look for jobs outside there. I believe I can also even create jobs for them also. And with the ideas I actually have in mind, and I always love to actually work with also startups and help them grow the best way I can using my expertise and everything. So most likely in the next few years coming now, I might not be working with companies anymore. Perhaps I can still stay with Toptal, but most likely I'll be starting my own company and getting to also work with other startups and build the best way I can to contribute to them.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love it. I think startups are always super exciting. It's like an emotional roller coaster in a good way, in a good way. So I am so excited for you to continue your journey and see kind of where you end up and how that goes. So thank you
Thank you very
so,
much.
so much for joining me on this podcast, walking us through your career and all of those pain points and highs and lows. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you very much for actually calling me to actually talk with you on this program. And it's really amazing talking with you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.